Heck, when you get old.
I hate Chrome. I really do. I wish there was a way I can run this through Firefox. Just saying. Ron was actually trying to talk me off a cliff yesterday about replay, and he was telling me I should try to do like an 85 replay also using Strat. So maybe Jester and I can do a kind of what Dave did one time where he ran like what? He ran a series in 4 different. I remember right.
Yeah.
You ran with 4 different games.
I played one game using 4 different game engines. Used Replay, Payoff Pitch, History Maker, and Strat. It was interesting.
So Ron was saying I should take the 85 Yankees and see if I can catch Toronto or something, or
that's
something.
I play the last month maybe.
Well,
like ID did with the 2016.
I grew up with the Channel 11 broadcaster, and I found a schedule.
Okay.
What actually listed the Channel 11 games, so I was thinking of doing all the Rizzuto, Messer, and White games.
Yeah,
the TV games, and then
the TV games. Yeah. Yep. That's cool.
They also did games I think they did games on Sports Channel 2, which I probably wouldn't. I hated that. And then they also had where they had no TV heaven for a bit also.
Right.
Had to resort to like newspaper or something. To be honest, I didn't get into radio baseball until not too long ago.
All right, guys, if you're joining us, we do appreciate it. We are just giving everyone a few minutes to join our chat here this evening before we get started. So we're just hanging out, just trying to make sure everything's hooked up and working. We do appreciate everyone's patience. In the meantime, if you are watching this on YouTube later, we'll be starting here shortly, though. So I got a whole list of stuff here, Dave. Oh, I can't show you what it is, but there's a whole, you see all that? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Should be a good time.
Actually, I thought about you. I played a practice game last night and thought about you on Inside Pitch.
Good.
I played the opening game between the Brewers and the Indians in 1989. Both pitchers in the real game pitched complete games, and both of them were out of there by the 4th inning because the score was so bad. So I had to use all these extra players that weren't in the game.
We're going to talk about that. It's one of the things we want to talk about for sure. For sure. In case I forget, remind me. But that's one of the things we definitely want to talk about. Yeah, we're just giving everybody a few minutes to join us up tonight. We'll get started here in just another minute or two. We're going to be talking about replay and how to set up and what you do to get your replay and philosophies. We're going to delve deep into philosophies tonight. We're going to be philosophers. You two are going to have to convince me that I'm wrong because I don't think I am. I've got a whole sheet to prove it.
Well, I mean, to me,
on your answers, so we'll see.
Replay, to me, it's the replay the way you want to do it. So to me, there's no wrong way to do a replay. It's all up to, I may be jumping the gun here, but
No, absolutely. One thing I want to say over and over and over tonight is the best way to do a replay is the way you want to do it. That's the best way.
Right.
So whether
that's the way you get the most enjoyment. You get the most enjoyment, and you'll stick to it. Yep. And you get the most enjoyment, and you stick to it, and people can see that you're having fun. So.
Now maybe
and
in the end,
that's what it's all about, is having fun.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Now maybe what we talk about tonight, might be able to convince me. I might be able to convince you. Maybe Sports Time Machine, he'll convince us both that we're doing something wrong. Who knows? But that's why I wanted to have this discussion open with everyone so we can get this on the table for everyone to see. So,
and I've got
speaking of
comments
which,
videos, and I'm sure you have too. So, did you
all right.
submit that to
I
Payoff
haven't
Pitch
submitted
already?
it yet because I'm still waiting to see if I get any more feedback.
No.
I get a lot of feedback saying, "Yeah, I love them. The charts are great," but nothing, super helpful.
Now the guy that does Payoff Pitch put a brand new infield in chart. He just put up a new infield in chart on his website. So I don't know if it's different from what you have or the
He probably
same, or
he
maybe
probably stole
maybe
it
he
from
took one
me.
of your adjustments or something. Maybe I don't
He
know.
probably stole it from me because I've been
But
sending
it's
him.
there now. It's on the free site.
I've been sending him the updates when I send them out for you guys. So,
Okay.
hey, Bobby Catalano, RF, how you guys doing? Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about ready to get started tonight. So appreciate everyone just giving us a few minutes just to make sure everything's up and running. Everybody's hooked up, and we're having a good time tonight.
I find it interesting today that the New York teams swept away the Beltway teams today, huh?
Yeah. Wanda Suero, latest casualty in the bullpen for the Nats. 3-run homer. 3-run homer he gave up to Gomez. And then Rajay Davis got him yesterday.
Yep.
Off of Doolittle.
Hey, Phantomatic, how you doing?
Right now there are 3 teams in baseball worse than the Nationals. Just 3. Miami, Baltimore, and Kansas City. That's it. Everybody, and Miami's only a game behind them.
Yeah. Miami's won 5 in a row. So,
yeah.
And guys, it's coming up at the end of May already. Another week we'll have we're going to have our end of May baseball preview show.
Yeah, and I'm going to need another reprieve on my Cardinals because I think I'm kind of giving up on the Cardinals.
No.
The Cubs look awful tough.
I told you I didn't believe, but nobody listens to me until it's too late.
I think the Cubs with their pitching is probably too tough.
Now we're going to talk about that come next
But the
week.
Astros, I'm still a believer on the Astros. I'm not budging from the Astros.
Yeah, the Astros, man, they look tough. And even though they lost to the White Sox the other night, they still look tough.
That's right.
I picked the Twins, and they're up by 7-2, so I'm kind of happy about that.
I thought they would do well, but I didn't think they'd do that well.
They'll be up by 8.
Yep.
So I had the Twins. I think David had the Twins.
Yep. I had them, but not by this much.
Well, it's still early, though. It's still early. Our
still could get
saying,
injuries
right?
and so forth. So.
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And of course, hang on. As soon as I get started, everything falls off the table. That's great.
Everything jumped the shark.
So, guys, this will be your last warning, last time. Well, I've sent out version 7 of Payoff Pitch charts. If you haven't gotten them yet, email me, idjesterlive@gmail.com. I'll send you out a free copy. You can test them out for yourself. I'm looking for feedback. If I don't get anything back by the end of May, I'm just going to go ahead and submit them the way they are. I think I've played them quite a bit. I know some other people have played them quite a bit, and everything seems to be pretty good. But we're looking for any final adjustments that need to be done. If you've got some ideas, throw them my way, idjesterlive@gmail.com. You'll know you'll have version 7 of the charts if on the top of the front page there is the left, center, and right are in red. Only version 7 has the red in left, center, and right. So that will be version 7, so you'll have the most up-to-date charts. Like I said, I want to get these over to Payoff Pitch as soon as we can. So by the end of the month, if you want to do any final testing, if you want to get them, give me an email. Otherwise, we'll send them for submission and see if Joe finds them worthy enough to put on his website. So, all right. So we're going to have a wonderful conversation. I've been actually wanting to do this for a while because during my sports replays I've been running on my channel here, I get posts, I get comments from people saying to me, well, you should use this, or why are you using this guy? Why aren't you using this guy? And there seems to be some different philosophies on how and why to use your players in your replay. What's the best way to do it? And what's your philosophy on putting players in and stuff? And we're going to talk about all that stuff tonight because I get messages all the time from people at my old videos saying, well, I wouldn't, why did you put in this reliever? Why did you bring in this player instead of this player? And so we're going to talk about the hows and whys of setting up your replay with our honored guests tonight. First of all, we have Baseball Demos joining us tonight. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right. And, of course, another honored guest, Sports Time Machine, Utah Mike. How you doing tonight?
Great ID. How are you doing? Doing great.
All right. These two gentlemen are longtime sports replayers. We wanted to get on Ron Juckett as well, but unfortunately he wasn't feeling good tonight. So we wish Ron a speedy recovery. Hope he's feeling better. Everyone give Ron next time you see him, check on him, make sure he's doing okay. So want to make sure he's doing okay. We want to say hi to everyone in our chat, of course. Bobby Catalano, RF, Phantomatic, Dave Garner, and anyone else that I might have missed. I apologize, but thank you all for joining us. So, sports replays, gentlemen, sports replays. How long, just in general terms, how long have you been running replays, David?
Replays probably 3 years.
Okay.
Last 3 years. The first couple of years I just kind of tootled around, but serious replays I'd say 3 years.
That's 3 years. Okay. And in general, how many games, just, off the top of your head, how many games does that encompass?
Well, when I do them, it's 162. I don't finish them all, but my intent. Now, I did do the Atlanta Braves. I did finish the Atlanta Braves, all 161 on History Maker, and of course, I'm about game 32 on the White Sox, so I'm rolling on that. But
and you run other games while you're running those as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
You probably got maybe over 1,000 games, replay games.
I would say so. Yeah, okay. That I've actually rolled on the table. Yeah.
Okay. And what about you, Mike?
Well, I guess I've been running replays for the last couple years. I've been in a lot of Stratomatic replays also, but they're a different demon altogether. Then you can create your own lineups, create your own rotations. They're not stock teams. They are draft league teams, which is a question in itself. When you play in a draft team league, how do you do that and everything else? But I've always been a stock team person myself by using the actual teams. So I've been playing strat since my first set, I think, was 81. So every time I've been messed with it, I like to do some kind of replay, or if I just play a one-off game kind of thing too. So.
And how many games, in your lifetime, how many games have you run? Just general.
Probably a couple hundred. I mean, I always try to get 78 started and never get fully through it. So always have a couple different seasons I want to try to do, or a replay that I want to start. So There's always a bunch of them I tried.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we can go back on both of your channels, so we can see game after game after game, and so that's what we're going to talk about tonight, because I think there's some different philosophies. I just started doing card and dice replays. You guys know I was mostly doing computer game, sports game replays, and that's totally different than when you're doing cards and dice, which we'll delve into a little bit different. But for those of you at home that are wondering, the main reason behind this is it seems to me like there's some question about whether I'm doing my replays right or wrong, or why I did this or why I didn't do that. And we're going to talk about the way I do things, and the way David does things, and the way Mike does his things. And we're going to and basically our goal tonight is just to give you ideas, make you think about things, and maybe you'll take some of what we talk about tonight to heart and decide that you want to maybe change how you're doing things or add something to the way you're doing things or whatever. So this is just going to be an open discussion with two sports sim replayers that have got hundreds and hundreds of games under their belt. They've been doing this for years, and they've gone through the gamut from the start and trying to figure out the best way that they want to do it. But David, what is our goal tonight? Number one goal we want to give everyone and tell everyone about replaying.
Is there's no right or wrong way to do it. Do it the way that makes you the happiest, because it's all about you having fun. And if somebody else does it differently, who cares? It's your project. You do it the way you want to. It's like the steakhouse. No rules, just right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the number one thing we want to take away is you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. You can keep doing things the way you want to do it. All we're hoping to do is open a discussion and allow people to think about the things that we're talking about. Oh man,
There's my biggest replay fan right here.
we have the mascot right there.
We have Tabby. Go on, Tabby.
Tabby's in the house.
Yeah, she's in the house.
I'm adjusting. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, my
All right.
game room is upstairs, and every time I come up here, Tabby has to come with me. There's no option. She has to come. So now she does get in the way sometimes, but that's okay.
So as I mentioned, this is going to be just total open discussion about things. I've got a whole list of questions I'm going to propose to my guys, and I'm going to do it in kind of the moderator where I'm trying to convince you or trying to steer you a certain way, my own IDJESTER way. But of course, it's up to you how you respond to the questions. So just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to tell you guys are right or wrong. I'm just going to use my examples, saying that I'm doing it, and how would you adjust to that? Okay. So again, we're all good friends. We might not see eye to eye on everything. I mean, me and David, we go back and forth on certain things, but we also see eye to eye on certain things, and we also respect one another's opinions one way or the other. We might not agree with it, but at least I respect where he's coming from. Hopefully he does the same. And, we like to have these open discussions because discussions are good, because I don't learn anything. Nobody else learns anything if nobody says anything about this.
Right.
So my question to you, Mike, definition, when we're talking replay, if I was to type in definition replay on my computer, what sentence is going to come up?
Oh, phew. I never thought of that as a teaching question, a vocabulary lesson before. But to me, I guess in sports situation, a replay to me has always been a particular team's journey and trying to get to a particular event. It's either toward the end of the season or to the end of a particular stanza in their career. That's how I see it.
And David, what would be your, if I was to type it in the computer, definition of replay? What's going to pop up? I've got the answer. I'm going to give it to you guys here in a second. I just want to hear what your answer is ahead of time.
My definition of it, if you're talking about especially a season replay.
I'm just talking about if I type the word replay into the computer and I say, definition of replay, what is it going to take?
The prefix re indicates that you're doing something over. So you are reenacting a previously played season again to see how similar you can get to the actual results that actually happened. And if you're testing the game engine, you say, okay, Strat got me this close, payout pitch got me this close. But you're trying as best you can to basically duplicate what happened in the actual season.
All right. So the actual definition of replay, there's a verb definition, which is, when you're playing a video or blah, blah, blah. But we're looking for the noun definition. The noun definition is an occurrence which closely follows the pattern of a previous event. An occurrence which closely follows the pattern of a previous event. So that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to simulate a previous occurrence to see what happens when we recreate that occurrence. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
So, what exactly, when we're talking about a sports replay, what are we trying to get out of the sports replay? I'll just go back to Mike first. When you do your sports replay, what is it? What are you trying to accomplish from getting your replay?
Well, you know what? Different seasons give me different definitions. When I've ever tried to replay or want to replay the 1978 season, it's replaying my childhood when I was about 10 years old, and I want to play one of the happiest years of my life. I want to see if I can duplicate the flippin' effing season that the Yankees had, according to Al Red Sox fan and every Dave Gardner and every other person out there who are New England fans who watched this season in infamy. On the reverse, I want to be able to say, "Ha! It happened again," or I want to be able to recreate or replay. See if they can get 14 games behind again, and see if I can catch up again, or can I actually go distance to distance with them and see if they can get there. See if I can even change history. Sometimes would be one definition.
All right, Dave. What about you, bud?
Mine is it's a managerial challenge. I tried to do better than the actual manager did with his team in that particular season. Like right now, I'm redoing the Washington Nationals last year on Action PC, and I'm trying to do better than Dave Martinez, which shouldn't be that hard to do. But it's early still, so we can't really tell. But that's what I try to do. I try to, like with the 77 season, it's a little bit like Mike was saying, it's a little nostalgic for me because I remember the 77 White Sox and the season and all that. But for something like the 87 Braves, when I did that, I'm just trying to see if I can manage the team better than Chuck Tanner and get them to have a better record, maybe by my decisions. And I know it's luck of the dice and all that, but hopefully my decisions will allow. Maybe I thought he used a guy in as the ace reliever too often, and I want a different reliever in there, or I want something a little bit different. I don't want to do exactly what he did because he'll get the same results. I want to see if I can do better than him, given the tools that he has to work with.
Okay.
So I limit myself to the players on his roster that he has to work with.
And Dave, I think you probably, this is just something I'm just thought about. You're probably using the 87 Braves for the same reason I would say, yeah, I probably remember that team too, because I think that was the first team I actually remember. I think that's the first time I remember clicking on my TV set one of the first years and seeing, oh wow, I have WTBS now on my cable station, and I watch and I see this team called the America's team, and I'm in Jersey still, and going, wow, I can watch some other baseball, and I got these other guys I watch. I can watch Murphy, and I think the first game they watched, they were on the West Coast against the Giants or something. It's like, wow, it's different type of baseball you could watch nightly instead of back then. There was no ESPN covering baseball. At least they didn't cover as much baseball back then. You were limited in what your options were watching games.
Yeah.
So it
was definitely nostalgic for 87. Yep, and it's also 87 is also the first year that Atlanta switched from those powder blue jerseys to the traditional with the tomahawk like they had back in the 50s. 87 was the first season they did that. It was also, I was in college, so I followed it a lot closer than I did the early 80s. So yeah, that's a bit of a nostalgia too, I would say as well.
All right, so I'm setting some ground rules because we're going to get down to nitty gritty here. We're going to get into more but I want you guys to give me your information so I can use it against you in the court of law. So everything you say can and will be used against you. So would
Well,
you
no pleading
say,
here. I'll say
Dave,
anything.
there's a difference between replay and a historic replay? Or do you think they are the same?
To me, it's the same.
Okay. What about you, Mike?
Because to me, replay is you're doing history. You're going back and redoing history. So when I hear historic replay or replay, to me, it's the same thing.
All right. And what do you think, Mike?
I believe honestly it's the same thing. It's just a change of words to me, because I honestly, when it comes to doing a Stratomatic historical replay or Stratomatic replay, they're both going to be done to me usually about the same way. So
Okay. All right. So, all right. So historic replays are basically the same thing. So somebody says, "Hey, I'm running a replay. I'm running basically they're a historic replay." So we're talking about using, again, the definition of replay. We're going to closely try to simulate a previous event for ourselves to see what outcome there is.
Mhm.
Would you guys agree with that, right?
Yep.
that's correct.
So when you're running your replay, all right, you use historic lineups, starting
Yes.
lineups,
As played. Yes.
as played lineups.
Has
And
to
you
be
might
as
you,
played.
you as well. And I know
Yes.
that
Unless
for sure. So
unless it's a fringe player that I don't have a card for, then I have no choice. But other than that,
okay,
if I
we'll
got the
we'll
card,
get to finish players and what you do about
okay.
that in a little bit. But yeah, so we're
But if I got the cards, it's as played.
all right. So once the replay starts, we all know it's not going to go exactly as it happened in real life, right? We all know that. It's not going to go. I mean, if I'm pitching, we got two really good pitchers. My game's going to end up 9-8. When in real life, it ended up 1-0, and both pitchers had a
Right.
complete game. We all know it doesn't exactly happen the way it happens in real life. So there has to be some kind of altering. And that is, I think, where the main crux comes. And everybody kind of has the same general views about replay, historic replays, using historic lineups, using the starting lineups, and going from there. The problem is once you get from there to the end, things are different between different players. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes. Yes.
I agree.
Okay. So we both we all understand. I mean, we're sports resimmers and replayers. We know that the general gist. We want to play the 2011 Atlanta Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals, and I want to get the historic players on the field. Because why do we want to do that? Is because of the stats, right? So
Right.
we're gonna use this time warp continuum that's gonna happen here because it's kind of like what's that movie Back to the Future, where Marty McSorley goes back to seeing his previous self, and
Yep.
he alters his history. It's kind of the same alter reality we have here, right? Because
Sounds
we've got
like you need a time machine.
we've got players' stats on a card. I mean, no matter what system you use, every system, baseball system, hockey, doesn't matter, are giving the players stats. Now, those stats are based upon what the player did in real life, right? I mean,
Right.
if you made 20 errors in a season, then one system might rate them a D, error range. Another one might rate them a B or whatever the system is. But all the different game systems are using what had happened in real life and giving him different ratings that you can use to replay the games that are about to happen in real life for you, but you're using stats that happened for him in the past. And now you're going to alter those stats based upon what he did in his past, but you're going to be doing it in the present. Does all that make sense to both of you guys?
Yes.
It does,
And
yes.
and we're also doing it with forethought because we know what happens. The manager at the time does not know what happens. We
Yes,
already have that
that
information
is
that
another
he
vital
doesn't
point we're going
have.
to get to. Seriously, we're going to get to that. So my question. All right, so now it's time to divulge the rest of the story, right? So the way I do my replays, and again, you guys do it your way, and everyone else at home does it their way, and there's nothing wrong with the way anybody does it as long as you're having fun. This is just an open discussion
Right.
to bring out views that maybe everyone should, or some of you might think about, maybe I'll think about, maybe Dave and Mike will think about, and maybe they'll alter the way they do things based upon our discussion. Who knows? So the way I do replays, and then I'm going to have each of you guys tell me, is I do the same thing you guys do. I bring out my historic lineups and I get them set and I get them ready to play, right? And I also get out every player that played in the game, whether they were a pinch hitter, a relief pitcher, a pinch runner, or anything like that. And I have everyone that actually played in the game available as long as they have a card. And again, we're going to talk about if they don't have a card, what do we do about that? Okay. Because in my view, if they have a baseball reference record, that player maybe had some significance that happened in that game. Now they might have went 0 for 5 or whatever, but they still had some kind of importance in that game. So I will then play the game out using the players that played in that game. And if I need a pinch hitter, then I will look at the options that are available. Let's say the team had 3 pinch hitters, and I don't necessarily bring them in order like this guy did first, and this one was second, and this one was third. I will look at all 3 of them. I will determine which one makes the best situational bet, lefty righty matchups and all that stuff. I'll then bring them in. If I need to bring a relief pitcher in, again, I'll make a decision on, lefty righty for the situation. I don't use them directly in order like they were used in real life. And then if I run out of those players, if for some reason, the pitcher went a complete game, I don't have any relief pitchers, but in my game, the pitcher was shelled in the first 6 innings, and I've got to pull him. I will bring someone in that didn't play in the game, but only as an emergency relief. So that is how I do things, okay? And the reason we're having this discussion tonight is because I've been questioned about that over and over and over and over again, okay? So I want to hear how you guys set up your replay. So, Mike, we'll go with you first.
Okay, well, all right. Guess you wanted a discussion or what's the definition of a debate? Well, here you go. So usually when I play one, and I'm on Stratomatic gives you a daily roster of who's available to you that day for any given day. So you get your 25-man roster, usually 15 pitchers, 10 hitters. Yes, I will look back and see maybe who pinch hit, stuff like that. But to me, after I get my 9 starters on the field, and I will go ahead and use a definition I was looking up, because I know you're big on definitions, Professor ID, because I had a question on this just to bring the teaching tool to a table here. One of the definitions it comes up for me, it says a customary way of doing something, a custom or a practice. That is a definition of usage. And I use usage as an important factor since I'm involved in 4 or 5 different Stratomatic leagues of how I do my replays. So unfortunately, if I have a guy who has 200 play appearances and most of them are as a backup jack of all trades player, he's the one that's going to get the majority of my bats, even if he didn't play. If he's available on my roster game 1, but he didn't play in game 1, he'll be one of the guys I'm going to go with, because I want to use who was on my 25-man roster on April 1st of such and such year. Because I know rosters are going to change because of daily, what they call automatic transactions. And automatic transactions will tell me which players I have to use. That's why we use as played lineups. And then the automatic transactions tell me when I can use somebody and can't use somebody. Kind of like your Brave replay and not having Ronald Acuna available to you until middle year because his service time. because the Braves decided not to use him, not to bring him up because they wanted to basically wanted to. Well, he signed to a multi-$60 million contract anyway, but he was basically not brought up earlier, I believe, because of service time contracts, because he had to wait a certain time so the Braves can control him that extra year, so he didn't get a year of arbitration early on them. So instead of using him, let's say, a day early, you want to use him on day one. No, I play as played lineup and what's called historical transactions. So when a guy's available to me that day on the roster is when I can use him. And yeah, I do go back to see who played and who, what the actual result was, to see what options I have. But ultimately, when it comes, I'm getting in the heat of things, I'm using a guy that's going to get me. I'm using a guy that's going to get me the win or help the team win right there at that point.
All right, great explanation. We'll come back to all that for sure. Dave?
A lengthy explanation, but a good one.
Yeah, real good.
Actually, my answer is not that far off from Mike's. Anytime I do a replay, I won't do a replay unless I have access to all the transactions. I've got to know who the 25 players are on any given day that are available, and I will only use the guys that are available. I'm not going to use a guy that wasn't even on the roster at the time. And I use the as played lineups to start the game. But once the game starts, it's fair game. I'm using whoever I can to win the game that day based on the situation. Now, it could be in real life that when the game was played, the manager never had to use his lefty specialist reliever, but I may be in a tight spot in the 8th inning, and I need that lefty specialist reliever. And if he didn't play in the game in real life, I don't care. He's on the roster. I'm using him because he's going to be effective right there. And if you adhere and are honest and keep to your fatigue factors, you can't overuse people because he will become fatigued after so many uses, and you have to rest him. But so I think me and Mike are kind of on the same page as far as how we do our replays, but we both check the 25-man rosters on any given day to make sure we only use guys that were available, but I don't want to handicap myself by only being able to use 18 to 19 guys. I want the whole 25-man roster at my disposal.
Yeah, and you guys might not know this, but I've watched you guys for a long, long time. I've been a subscriber for you guys. I know exactly how you guys are. I knew your answers before you even gave them, and that's why you're here tonight, because I want to hear someone that does it differently so that other people out there can hear your side of the story and not just hear my side of the story.
And I'm not saying the way I do it is right or wrong. It's just the way I do it.
Okay. Exactly. And I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong either. I'm just going to put you to task now to explain to me your philosophy. Remember, I talked earlier offline that we were going to get deep tonight. We're going to be talking philosophies and stuff like that. Okay.
Can I throw a caveat on there if I can?
Sure, absolutely. You can. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you know what? This and maybe Dave would. I mean, we've only done this, Dave and I, probably, I guess, for a couple years, to be honest. I mean, but we've been gaming, I guess, off and on for a while now, I'm sure. So, if let's say back, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, when the internet was not as accessible and Stratomatic maybe wasn't available to me on the computer, and information wasn't on the super duper highway of the internet as it is now. Playing a historical as played replay was almost impossible. So you took your guys that came in the rubber band, because we rubber banded stuff back then, like you did baseball cards. You unraveled them, you put your guys in pitchers, hitters, throw them out there. Those are guys you're using for your replay. Now we've gotten to the point of watching others play and go, oh, we can do historical replays and have the actual starting lineups play, and actually have guys who are on the roster. Ooh, that's a nice, interesting aspect. The idea of the replay has changed so much. I mean, to me, I don't know how long it's been around for, but if someone tells me they've been doing a historical replay for 20 years, I think that's a bunch of bull. Because I don't think there's any. I mean, yeah, unless you're out there and you had previous to Major League Baseball's historical, encyclopedias and that gave day by day transactions, there's no way you can do it unless you collected every newspaper, and my mother would have told me to throw mine out. So I don't think there's a way to do one back in the day when the internet became more accessible and you could find all this stuff like Stratomatic. We could go over places to go like Stratomatic Sim Research or Ronbo stuff. That you can print out sites with lineups and your available players and stuff like that, or other stuff that are now available. These weren't available back then to us. I mean, now is so much easier for us to do and have the aspect of replaying a option.
And also a strat too. The older sets, you're lucky if you got 20 players in the set per team. So
Yeah,
you might have 4 or 5 pitchers, and that's it. Maybe 6 or 7 at tops. So your options are very, very limited.
Right. I mean, anybody can go on YouTube now, and anything from like year 1998 and above, you can go on and watch the actual games being played, see who was there. And back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't even have YouTube. We didn't even know what it was. So,
and that's the great thing about games like Inside Pitch and Payoff Pitch is they include all the players. I mean, you get everybody.
yes.
And if they don't have them in the cards, they got a PDF for you. So if you want, you can get every stinking guy who had one at bat, and you'll have them with you if you want to get that detail.
Yes. All right. So now I like I said, I knew you guys kind of did it the way you explained, but I wanted you guys to explain it to the audience out there. And we do want to welcome Mike McAllister, Dave Gardner, and Bobby Catalano. If we haven't said hello to you guys yet, hello. Make sure you hit that like button. Show some love to our panel tonight. They're doing an awesome job. Again, this is nothing about anybody doing anything wrong. Everyone does it their own way, and as long as you're doing it your way and you're happy with it, you can do it any way you want. So
Like Sinatra, do it my way.
And I don't think I'm gonna change Dave and Mike's the way they've been doing it for a while, and they're very happy with the way they're doing it. But at least I want to make them think about it, and they're gonna, I'm sure, say things that are gonna make me think about the way I do things. Okay, here is my dilemma. Okay, and that's why I asked you these really boring questions to begin with, because I wanted to hear your answers to them, because now we're going to get into this time continuum matrix. Okay, we're doing a replay, and the definition we've already decided was an occurrence which closely follows the pattern of a previous event. Okay,
Right.
we've already agreed.
Closely follows, not exactly follows, but closely follows.
Exactly. All right. So we know we're trying to recreate an event, which, it's not going to turn out the same way every time that it happened. Dave, you had one the other day that was very, very similar to what happened in real life.
I mean, that's a rarity, though.
And exactly. It's a rarity. It doesn't happen at all ever, Harley. So when it does, you made a note of it.
Yeah.
So the players play the season. They do their events. I'm calling them events, whether it's an error, a hit, a home run, or whatever. That's how they get their stats. The players' events happen through the season to give the team their final results. Right? Would you all agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to replay what had happened, okay, but I'm going to change it and expect to have the same outcome at the end, doesn't seem to me, again, I'm going to say this one more time, because I don't want anybody saying, I'm not trying to convince anybody to do anything different than the way they like to do it, okay? I'm going to say that. I'm sticking with that. I'm just bringing up devil's advocate here, okay? If I'm going to replay something, but I am going to alter it and change it, how can I expect to compare that to something that actually happened in real life?
Because you're comparing apples and oranges. You're not comparing apples to apples. It's apples to oranges.
That's kind of my point is, if you guys, I only use the players that came into the game, okay? You guys both admitted that you use the historic lineups, and then in your situation, we'll say, all right, I'm going to give you an example. We can all relate to this example. All right. 2018 World Series. All right. As you guys know, I just replayed that on my channel. And I had two people ask me when I was replaying one of the games why I didn't put Kelly Jansen in to try and save the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kelly Jansen only appeared in 2 of the 5 World Series games. Okay? If I'm going to replay the 2018 World Series, okay, and I put Kelly Jansen in 4 or 5 of those games, do you not think that that is going to alter who has a chance of winning the World Series?
Yes, but I'll add my stick my nose in this first and say you're trying to replay a World Series that only lasted 5 games because the Red Sox snuffed out the Dodgers faster than a nightly cigarette. I think I didn't know what your series, how many it ran, or what was the final outcome. But if yours went more than 5 games, then of course you're going to use a guy for more than that. Are you supposed to penalize Kenley Jansen because your replay went longer than the actual series did? Because your luck of the dice was a little bit better than the Dodgers played in real life.
Yes. To answer your question, yes. If I had to bring in an emergency player, I could bring in Kelly Jansen, and I would not be upset with that. I would not think that that's going to alter it because I took. It's kind of like creating a cake for me, okay? And you're going to take your flour and your butter and your chocolate chips and you put them all in your mixing bowl. But sometimes, oh no, I need more than just that. I got to find some butterscotch to put in it, and I add butterscotch to it. It's still the same cake because I have all the original elements. I just added to it. When I am going to create a cake in your world, okay, I'm going to start with the flour, and then I am going to put all kinds of different things in that might end up not being a cake at the end because of what you did to change it. Do you see what I'm saying? And here, for those of you who didn't see it,
Okay,
I hate to spoil it, okay, but I do want to tell you what happened.
Okay. Just tell us how many games it went first of all.
It went 5 games.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right,
Wonder-
can I jump in, or is Mike you still going?
You can jump in
Go ahead.
anytime. Here's my thing is if I'm going to replay and the World Series, I'm only talking about that specifically because, it's fresh in everybody's mind, and I don't need to refresh everybody's memory. If I'm going to play the 1918 or the 2018 Atlanta Braves, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the players that played in the game, whether that hurts me or helps me, because I want to, at the end of the season, compare to what happened to me as equally as possible to what happened in real life. If I have the opportunity, and we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to give this show to David here for a minute in just a sec. I had this situation come up yesterday when I was replaying the Braves, and Jose Bautista makes his first appearance for the Braves in the game I played last night. He batted 111 for Atlanta. He wasn't with them for a very long time. Is it right for me as a replayer to say, okay, I'm going to take Bautista out in the 3rd inning and put in, a different player because this player's got better stats, and I don't want to be penalized for having Bautista on my team? when we all know that the Atlanta Braves season was made up of what happened while Bautista did his stuff and everyone else did their stuff.
The way you did it was correct. Yes.
All right, Dave, you've got a lot to say, buddy. Go ahead, jump in, man.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just premise this by saying I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just trying to give my opinion. So I'm not putting down anybody else's stuff or whatever, or propping my stuff up or whatever. I'm just saying, and I'll go back to use the example you used with Kenley Jansen. First of all, I'll go backwards. I'll work with Jose Bautista because that was the most recent thing you mentioned. Yes, Jose Bautista should play in that game because in real life, the manager, Brent Snicker, whatever his name is not going to know that Jose Bautista only hit 111, so he's not going to be yanking him. They brought him in to hit, so he's going to play every inning until the end. You're not going to pinch hit for him because that's not something the manager would normally have done. You're not going to work outside what a normal baseball strategy would say to do. So that's my take on Bautista. Kenley Jansen only pitched in 2 games in the World Series because the Dodgers got their butt kicked. And you're not going to use your closer when you get your butt kicked. But if I'm playing a game and it's 2-1 in the 9th, I'm using Kenley Jansen. I don't care if it's all 5 games. I'm using Kenley Jansen because I want to win that World Series because that's what Dave Roberts would do. That's my philosophy. I'm just putting it out there. That's what I would do.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with anything you say.
And I'll go back a little further, too.
The first time to interrupt you just for a second.
Okay.
Nothing you will say is going to make me angry with you or disappointed with you or nothing. I have nothing but the most respect for you.
Okay. I'm just passionate, so sometimes when I'm passionate, it comes out a little.
You can tell me I'm doing it wrong. That's fine. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all, to be honest. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all.
The first time I saw it come up was when you were playing payoff pitch. You had just gotten payoff pitch, if I'm not mistaken, and you were playing the 2016 wild card game, Blue Jays and Orioles, and you laid out the players, and I was like, "Wait a minute, where's Zach Britton? You didn't have him in there. You said you didn't have Zach Britton." I'm like, "Why don't you have Zach Britton?" Well, in that game, Buck Showalter, being the idiot he was, didn't use Zach Britton like he's supposed to. But if I'm replaying that game, Zach Britton's going to be in my bullpen, and he's going to be used when time's appropriate. And just because he didn't play in the game doesn't mean I'm not going to use him.
And he ended up being the Babe Ruth to the Red Sox because the Orioles have sucked ever since.
Well, so again, we're going to continue to say this. Yeah. Everyone does it their own way. Yeah. I'm never going to be offended by anything that anybody says to me. And I hope you guys understand that I am not trying to offend you guys. I am putting you on the spot because I want to hear your honest answers. That's all I'm doing.
I'm in total agreement with Mike that you played Jose Bautista exactly the way he should be played.
Okay.
No way in the world you don't look in advance and say he's 111 and pull him. That's just unrealistic.
Okay, but I mean, we can take what happened with Jose Bautista and just carry that on to every other player that came up. Mm-hmm. If I bring in someone that didn't play in the game, they were on the roster, the manager might have been able to use them, okay? You also have to take into consideration things like players' rest, okay? Were the players sore? Was the player tired? Was he on a break? Was he not even on the team? Well, you guys make sure they're on the team, but if you're trying to bring in someone, maybe
they could be day to day and unavailable. We don't know that.
Maybe they were injured. Maybe they have a wrist injury from the other day, and they're still sore. Maybe they're tired because they've been in for a couple days, so the manager give them the day off. But you decide, I've got a card for him, so I'm going to use him today. Every time you do that, you skew what's going to end up happening in the replay because you're not using all of the bonuses and penalties that was given to that team for the season. If you take away some of those penalties, if I've got, so here's a good example. I've got a team I'm replaying, and the 3 relief pitchers I have are all left-handers because that's what happened in real life, okay? But you decide to pull in a guy that's a right-hander You've now altered that one game based upon bringing in a player that wasn't in there because you made a decision that I'm not going to put a left-hander in for a right-hander, which is a right decision. We all know that, right? But you've altered because now you've given the stats that are on that player card, okay? Remember we talked about the stats. His stats are based upon what he did during the season. You've now altered what he did during this season by bringing him in a situation he didn't come in.
Well, I think our goals are a little bit different because you're trying to get an exact representation of what happened and duplicate it almost to the letter, where I'm just trying to play the game the way I think it would have been played initially had a situation come up. So I'm playing the game the way I think the manager would play the game given the certain circumstances we're in for that particular game. I don't care if the season stats are a little bit off or not. It doesn't matter to me. That's not what my goal is. My goal is to see if I can win more games than the previous manager did with that same team and his same bullets in his gun, so to speak.
Okay.
So maybe our goals are a little bit different. I'm not trying to be an exact replicate.
Okay, but don't you think in the situation, if the manager in real life brought those three lefties in and you bring a righty in and you end up winning that game, don't you think in the long run you're going to have a better chance of doing?
Possibly, but I mean, if I bring him in, it's because game situation dictates. In my replay, the game situation dictates. In real life, that game situation never came up. But I'm trying to do what the manager would do.
Maybe it did come up, but the manager decided that, player X is,
Well, then they're an idiot. What do you want me to tell you?
Well,
Dave Martinez, perfect example.
Well, what I'm saying is, how some players hit other players really well. Maybe that player was up. We don't maybe have that stat available. Maybe we just don't know that stat. Maybe the manager knew that stat, right? Oh, if he's going to go up against this player, he's hit 3 home runs against him. I'm going to pull a different guy out, right? So he pulls a different guy out, but you change that. You go back and you say, no, I'm going to pitch him.
All right, let me play a little bit of devil's advocate with you in a replay.
Yeah.
Suppose you're playing your Atlanta replay, and Atlanta beats the Phillies 2-1 in the game, right?
Yeah.
And they bring their closer in the ninth to finish the game off. The only reliever that pitched in that game was their closer. But when you replay the game, the Phillies are beating the snot out of the Braves 8-0 in the fourth inning. You're telling me the first reliever you're going to bring in is the closer because that's who pitched in that game.
That's the only pitcher pitched.
If that was the only pitcher, I will bring him in to the game. Number one.
And see, no manager would ever do that.
Well, no, because it's not true. I mean, maybe the manager says,
a manager's not going to bring his closer in when you're down 8-0. That's just not going to happen.
Well, let me finish. I mean, maybe the manager says, it's been a couple days. We need to give him some work. We're already lost this game. Let's throw him out there for a couple innings. Boom. They do that all the time. I mean, there's reasons for, they do things like that.
Well, when I look at a season, I look at a reliever. If he pitched 62 games, then I'm going to try to pitch him as close to 62 games as possible. It just may not be the same 62 that he pitched in. I mean, the game situations to me dictate all that.
Okay, so, all right, that brings up, another question. So you've got pitcher X, all right, and you're doing your Chicago 77 replay, and you got 30 games left, and that pitcher is now done. He's reached his 62 that he did in real life. And you got 30 games left in the season.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't let that happen, but we'll keep going. So go ahead.
Okay, so
I would monitor
it happen.
I would not let that happen now.
Okay, so what would you do to prevent that from happening?
The rest would kick in. I mean, he would be tired. The rest would kick in because I'd use the Strat computer to tell me who's tired and who's not after I input all the stats. So that tells me he needs some rest. So I would rest that guy.
And you bring in somebody else, which can.
I bring in somebody. I'll bring in a lesser guy, particularly if it's a blowout. I'll bring in a lesser guy that I really wouldn't want to use, but he hasn't pitched in 3 days and he needs to pitch, so I'll pitch him.
Okay.
Unless he's Wilbur Wood and he can pitch every day.
So here's, we're bringing up different situations to see how everyone handles it. Okay. I would, in your situation, you brought it to me. I would bring in the reliever. I would say, okay, the manager says this game's over. It's 8-0 or whatever. And I'm going to bring in my reliever and give him a couple innings of work because we're going to need him. We don't need him going, 3 or 4 days without any work. That would not be a problem at all for me. Okay. So here's my question. So you have a game that's coming down. It's 4-4, bottom of ninth, bases are loaded, and in real life, Joe Blow comes up with a 128 average. Okay, and that's the guy that actually hit in the real life because again, the manager didn't know he has a 128 hitter, right?
Yeah.
Manager doesn't know. He just knows he's a person. Maybe he's on his hot streak and whatever. Hey, I'm going to pitch this. I'm going to throw this guy out there. And so, but you look at the card and you go, oh man, this guy's a 128. We got a tie ball game, bottom of ninth. You pull him.
Yes. Let me answer that if I can.
Sure, go right ahead.
All right. Now, again, historical as played lineups means you start the team. You start the team that your manager, in my case, when I'm doing the Royal replay, is Jim Fry. I have to deal with Pete Lecoq behind the center square for majority of my season because of Dave's favorite player, AO, is somewhere not available for me right now. He must be hurt. So I'm playing him. I'm playing Clint Hurdle and Wright, and I'm playing some other guys who I'm not aware of. And I'm playing a Jamie Quirk behind home plate, who really is not good either. I mean, Tabby can hit better than this guy. He actually hit a little bit. He actually hit a little bit better for me last game, and I actually bit my tongue on it. So never know. But what happens when I do this ID? And here, that's a perfect question to ask. I wanted to jump in and say this. Historical as played lineups, you play the lineup Jim Fry is given for at least the first 7 innings. If the guy comes up in the 9th inning, pressure part situation, now it's time for Utah Mike or the Sports Time Machine to go in the way back machine and take over this damn team and win the game. I will see if I have somebody on my bench who is well rested, who can still hit, and see if I can win this game. I got a lefty hitting specialist on my bench who I can use for so many at bats, and I got him waiting just in case if I get a lefty out there. And I also got some other guys. They don't have a great bench, which kind of is not good either. But I want to play John Wathen sighting. I always want to play John Wathen most of the time. He's a 300 hitter, and he sits. I'm going, I want John Wathen out there. So when I get to the 7th, 8th inning, and I need a pinch hitter, I'm not going to say, well, Wathen didn't play that game. Maybe he had a hang. No, John, get out there. Play. Because you know what? There are going to be other times where Wathen will sit or something else will happen, and he'll still get his at-bats. I'm not going to be, against that for putting people in there. I'm not going to let a bozo hit in the 7th or 8th inning. Now, if it was a 4th inning and I get a grand slam if I can make a change right now, no, I won't do that. But once I get, let's say, past the 7th inning, my managerial instincts take over and go, okay, now I need to make the decision for the team, for the moment right now.
Yeah. Because not only are we replayers, but we're managers. At least that's the way I see it. Hopefully that's the way Mike sees it, is that we're managers. And if Jim Fry had that same schlub up there with the bases loaded in the 9th, I can guarantee you he would pinch hit for that guy. Given the baseball situation.
Because in real life, he put that guy up there.
But he wasn't in that same situation in real life. He didn't have that 4-4 bases loaded situation in the 9th. Right. He was probably batting a blowout, so he let him bat all 4 times or whatever.
So,
but I just try to do whatever I think the manager would do, or what a manager would do in real life, and given that situation.
So the numbers on the cards to you guys, okay, are just the numbers. They're not the numbers that are on the cards are based upon the situations the player was put in every time during the season. And that's how he got his final stats, was the situations he was put in. So if you bring a player that did not have bases loaded in the bottom of the 9th with the tie game all season long, but you look at a card and go, wow, this guy hit 333. I'm going to put him in. Boom. That you don't see a philosophy you're using a stat that's based upon a real.
I'm not looking at the card. I'm not looking at the cards of who I bring in as a pinch hitter. I look at the player and say, would this manager bring this player in? Yes, no, whatever. So like in my White Sox replay, if Lamar Johnson is on my bench, I want to bring him in because I think that's who Bob Lemon's going to bring in. I don't care what he's hitting. I want to bring him in because he's better than Royal Stillman or whoever I'm substituting him for. But I'm only going to do it in a game situation when it's on the line. I'm not going to do it just because, hey, I want to get a hit in the 7th inning.
Right. Okay. So you're replaying the 2018 World Series,
Mm-hmm.
Game 2, close game. You bring Jansen in, even though he didn't come.
If they're in the lead, not if it's tied, but if they're in the lead, if it's a save situation only.
And
The
then
only time I bring him in is a save situation.
at the end of your replay, you end up Dodgers winning 5 games, Red Sox win 1. Okay? You don't think that's going to alter the outcome of what really happened based upon the things that you did during the series?
I'm playing the game situation. I could care less what happened in the actual World Series. If I'm playing a World Series, if I'm playing as one team, I usually play as both teams. That's the problem. I try to win. I try to do what's best for both teams. But if my goal is to have the Dodgers try to win as many games as possible, I'm managing every game like the 7th game of the World Series. I'm bringing in anybody that was available to play, no matter what the situation is. Whatever the best situation is to win that particular game.
Okay.
I don't care if you pitched in 1 game or 6 games.
And I know I've seen you've done for both teams equally. You know, it's when you're doing a Chicago replay, you're still trying to manage the other team, and you're doing, you have to.
I brought in Andre Thornton for Cleveland, and he had a double off me that tied the game. And that's why I had that 15-inning game where I ran out of spots on my score sheet because I decided to pinch hit with Andre Thornton in the 9th inning. I didn't have to do that, but I wanted to be fair to Cleveland. So I said, okay, I think the Cleveland manager, whoever it is at the time, Torborg or whoever, would have, if he had somebody like Andre Thornton sitting on his bench for his utility catcher, I think he would pinch hit for him in the 9th. And that's the way I played it. Whether he appeared in the game or not, I have no idea in real life. I didn't even look at that. I just went by game situations. But again, being fair to both teams.
All right.
Now, let me ask this question. I know my answers have been kind of long. Let me ask you this, ID. You were mentioning before about building a cake, right?
Yes.
Now, to me, I'll ask you a question. I'll ask you a question food-wise because your wife looks like makes some great apple turnovers. When you go to a store, do you normally buy name brand or do you buy generic, or does your taste buds not care?
We buy name brand stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. When you play a replay, and you are the perfect example of a full access Walmart, I can go into ID's channel and watch 5 or 6 different games out there under 5 or 6 different things you're doing. You know, Dave and I Dave's now doing his Manic Monday, so he's kind of going against that flow. But you run so many different game engines and playing different things that I bet you if you ran that same World Series or can run the same World Series with a different marketing of food, Stratomatic, payoff pitch, whatever games you might have, you may get different results too, because certain games that may not have the quote unquote lefty righty splits may tell you not to bat a Kiki Hernandez against certain people because he destroys lefties, and because to me he would never see light of day if he doesn't play. But I'm just saying, as a quick answer, do you ever sense that it might be it's the type of flour you're using, like you're talking before? Is it type of game engine? Because Dave and I are coming from a Stratomatic flour engine that we can see usage, we can see players availability, stuff like that.
I suppose I don't think it's a game engine, because every game engine could end up. You can end up with a 4-game sweep, or you can end up with a 7-game. I think, I don't think that really matters. I just think the flow of the game, right, can dictate what happens in the game. Like I said, I'm not opposed to bringing someone in an emergency situation, but I have to play the players that were there first. If I have a pinch hit opportunity, I got to look at the guys that came in and altered that game. Now, maybe it's because David brought it up a little bit ago that maybe we're trying to get different results at the end. For me, when I'm doing a replay, at the end, I want to compare and say, this is what happened when I did the same thing as they did in real life, and this is what happened for them, and then compare as much apples to apples as I can. You guys are maybe trying to get a different result at the end. You're trying to see how if you can do better based upon the way you manage the actual team, which I think is going to be a totally different outcome than what would happen with me.
Yes. Like if I replay a World Series, whether it's a 75 series or whatever, I don't care. I want the 25-man roster that was on the team on the World Series, and after that, and I'll play the starting lineups the way they were put out. But after that, it's fair game. I'll play whoever I want to play, whenever I want to, whenever I think the game dictates a certain situation. And I don't even care I don't even look to see who won the World Series or what the games were. I want to play it out, like, to borrow a phrase from the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra, my way. I want to do it the way I think the managers for both teams would have played these games, not knowing what happened in the past, being totally away from the past.
So when I bring out the cards for these players, okay, because each team has, I mean, especially in the year 2000 and earlier, if you look previous to that, 1990 and the 80s and the 70s, okay, when you get the whole team, it's like 25 people is the whole team. Nowadays, it's like 80 people, right? Because they have 6 guys that played one game. They have 5 guys that played 10 games or less. You got those fringe players in there that hardly ever made an impact, but they did make an impact, right? If I've got a fringe player that if he bats 140 or he batted say 15 times and he batted 112, but I only bat him say 10 times because I put in pinch hitter for him time after time after time after time, then I've altered the outcome of what happened in real life based upon the stats that are on the player's card. And I guess people just don't understand that philosophy because I have so many people asking me, why don't you put in this player? Why don't you use this player? I brought up the 2018 World Series because I've had several people ask me, why didn't you put Jansen in? Well, Jansen didn't play that game. How can I replay something? Because again, the definition, and you guys admitted, a definition is an occurrence which closely follows the pattern of a previous event. So I guess the definition of closely is where we alter on things. If I'm not going to play it exactly, right? Because I'm going to use the players, but I might use them in different orders and such. Well, you guys are thinking closely means as long as I use the players that were available to me. Mike?
Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying. I mean, again, I use the 25-man roster that's given me on a per game basis. So when I'm doing my let's say my Brett replay, and it's going to come to a point where Brett's going to be out with his injuries, those games will probably be, auto played, and I'm going to zip ahead to the schedule where he's playing again. I'm not going to say, you know what, I'm going to see if Brett had 700 bats that season and see if he can hit 400. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just go, all right, he's not playing. Those will be the games that auto and zip right ahead to where he's going to play again and start again. I'm not gonna alter. I won't alter history and have guys usually go well above their usage percentages, so to speak. And again, I brought up the usage definition earlier because to me, I'm involved with so many other leagues where usage is important to me that I have to have that. I have to watch usage, so I'm watching it while I'm playing my replays also, like David does. And to answer your question too quickly, back in the 1977, guys pitched 9 innings, 8 innings a day, and you had relievers who didn't pitch as much, and you had starting lineups where you didn't pinch hit at all during the game. Now in the days where you have the classic managers who overmanage, they're setting up 5, 6, 7 different pinch hitters games. So you're telling me if you're watching your Atlanta Brave game and they pinched it 7 times during the day, you're going to do that? Or if you are in your game, you're up 2-1, are you still going to pinch it 7 times?
No.
Mm.
All I would do is, if a pinch hit situation came up, I would use someone that pinch hit. If a pinch hit situation never come up, I would never use a pinch hitter. If if my pitcher was pitching a perfect game and I had in real life 6 pitchers pitch that game, I wouldn't bring them in. I would just bring them in. If I'm going to bring someone in, it had to be somebody that played in the game. Is kind of my philosophy, and that's because like I said, maybe the reason is because I'm going for reliving history. You're going for seeing what happens if I do X, Y, and Z through history. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. All right, let's talk about another deep, tough subject and how it's handled, and that's where you don't have a player that played in the game, and you don't have a card for him. How do you handle that situation? Do you just decide who should be his replacement? Do you make up for that player not having a card by putting his workload on someone else? What do you normally do there?
As Dave gets videos going in and out, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and answer this kind of quickly. Since I play Strat, I own everything 1968 and basically my how long have I been around this universe? And so I have the fortunate of, if I need a player, I got a player on there. So I got 2 options. I can either go on the Strat app and copy a player, email it to myself when I go to work, wait till the boss leaves, print them, cut them out, I have a card. Or if I'm playing a computer game, I got the card anyway. So right now, since this is the main game I'm playing, I don't usually will run into that problem per se, because I have options. If I'm playing cards and dice and run into this problem, again, I'm going to eventually I'm going to get the Strat app. So I have every single Strat card that they offer, and I can just go in there, make a snapshot, send it to myself, email it, copy it, and then put it on a index card. Boom, done, and I'm all set.
Okay.
So I think
does Strat card every single player, or just like, do they have to have a certain requirement? We hear you, Dave.
Yeah, your video's not there, but I think we just heard you. Strat actually, Strat app does give you every single player possible. Anyone that was ever carded from them will be on there. So if Strat didn't have a super advanced season, they kind of give you a facsimile, kind of what super advanced would kind of, or advanced kind of look like. So they will give you something like that. But for all the seasons they have super advanced is the exact cards if you were to buy the sets, which to me, I'm shocked that Strat, being as greedy as they are and coming from a Strat guy, that they would actually give you their database like that to play with and have.
All right. David, you with us, buddy?
Can you hear me?
We do hear you, but
you're ghosting us.
Yeah, it's my phone screwing up. Well, if you can hear me, at least I can put my 2 cents in.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Still put my 2 cents in. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I do that?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. I was messing with my phone so much trying to get it fixed. I almost forgot what everybody was talking about. Were you talking about I think you're talking about the different goals that we had?
No, the fringe players, I believe.
Fringe players.
Yeah, we were talking about, if you don't have a player card, how do you handle the situation where, you can either not, he doesn't have a card because he was only maybe, came in and pitched maybe 5 innings, or maybe only had 10 at bats, and you just can't get a card for whatever the system is you're doing your replay. How do you handle that situation?
Well, I just play with who I have. I don't have any other choice. I don't. There's no substitute to put in there. The guy only pitched like 7 innings, or maybe he started one game. It's bad if you're a starter. If you're a reliever, you can get away with a little bit better. But if you're a starter, that really ticks me off when I don't have a starter, because I'm trying to, that's one thing I want to keep consistent is the starting lineup. So if I don't have the starter, then that really, really, can get to me. If it's like an infielder that maybe got a cup of coffee and played 2 games, I don't worry about him. I put in some other the closest fringe player I can find. I don't put the superstar in. I'll
Okay.
put another fringe player that plays that position.
That's what I was wondering is, do you put his workload on somebody else? Do you try to find somebody that's equal to him, or somebody that
Right.
if I got one guy that played 15 games, same position, I'm just going to throw those extra games on that other guy. Okay, so that's how you handle that.
Yeah,
Okay.
like Uncle Ron was doing today. He had Greg Pryor playing third base for the Royals instead of George Brett. Well, suppose Greg Pryor had like 10 at bats all year. I'm not going to substitute with George Brett. I'm going to pick some other schlub off the bench to put there. I'm going to give George Brett his day off.
Okay.
I might pinch hit for him in the ninth, because that's what he would do on a day off. Typically, when they get days off, they still come in and pinch hit. I just wouldn't put him in. I just wouldn't put him in the field to play defense.
All right. So this actually happened to Sports Time Machine Utah Mike. So I'm going to ask David what he would do in this situation.
Okay.
So you replay, you got your 1977 game and you replay it and you record it, and it was a really good game, and you go to upload it to YouTube and YouTube craps it out, and you don't have a backup copy of that. How do you handle that situation, or has it ever happened?
Well, I don't replay the game because I've already played it once. I'm not. If I miss it on a video, I don't care. I've got the stats on my paper and I put it in the computer. I'll play the next game and say, "Oh, by the way, I tried to play this on video. It didn't work out, but here's what happened," and show the box score and everything like that. But I'm not going to replay a game just because the video crapped out. I'm going to go with the original result and just pick a different game to play.
All right.
I mean, unless the caveat is if I'm doing like a pitcher replay, like a Mark Fidrich replay or something, then yes, I'm going to have to replay that game because the whole replay is based on that one guy. But if it's a season replay, I'll just go on the next game.
Okay.
Yeah, and the same thing as with mine, since mine was just doing a World Series replay. And what I might do,
kind of had to at that point, yeah.
What I might do, and I know, and you were saying to do this, Dean, you were just laughing about it. No, what I'm probably going to do, since I haven't put the game in, I haven't logged the game in Strat PC yet, I can basically, if I can basically do the same thing. I can basically record me putting the stats into the Strat engine and basically call it like a radio broadcast almost, because you'll see the guys around the field scoring and the scoreboard changing and the players changing. Because I have to put in exact hits and all that. So I'm probably gonna when I put the stats in, I'm just gonna probably re-record that, and it'll be you just won't. It will be a radio broadcast. You won't see the dice going. So I'm not sure how well that would go, or should I just show the paper and go, "Wow, you missed a unfreaking believable game." So that's the tough part. It wasn't a 9-1 game. So
yeah. It is a tough situation. I've had that happen myself, where you have an awesome, and you want to share it with somebody, but then it's like, damn, I don't want to have to redo it. And if you didn't keep stats, if you were using, let's say I was keeping stats on my computer, then my computer crashed, I don't have a backup of it, then I don't have a record to share with anybody. So that actually happened to me once. So, pitchers. Okay, since we're specifically talking sports replays, a lot of us are baseball. Bringing in, again, you don't care who pitched in the game. You just care who's available to bring in. Is that correct?
For me, yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So how do you keep? No, I know. Mike said that he uses Strat to keep track of tiredness, or maybe that was you. How is Strat determining, based upon when you input it into the computer game, it'll then tell you, oh, X, Y, and Z players are tired because they played 6 days in a row, or how does that work?
Well, for pitchers, if you pitch like a reliever for 2 innings, it's going to put a little code by his name for the next game, saying, "Hey, if you bring him in, he's going to already be tired, he's less effective." And with starters, it's going to basically say he's unavailable. Same with replay baseball. I use that computer game sometimes. It does the exact same thing. It gives me a usage chart day by day, so I can go in there and see exactly when the last time I used a reliever was, who's the most used reliever, who's the least used reliever, and a lot of times I'll go get the least used guy first because I want to get him some work. And then when it gets to the eighth and ninth inning, then I kind of play it more strategically. But in the early part of the game, I just use whoever's the most available majority of the time.
All right, so
it's a blowout.
So both of you can answer this. So you check the 25-man roster. So
Yes.
September 1st, when the rosters go to 40-man roster,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives you an extra 16 players to use. How do you handle that? Do you just use all 40 then?
Well, most teams don't call up all 40 guys. I mean, they don't call up all 16 guys. Most teams call up 5 or 6 extra guys.
Yeah, depending how a team's AAA affiliate's doing at the time. If they're in the playoffs, you usually don't see them until middle of the month. If you have a team that's not doing well, they usually will call them all up on September 1st, and you'll see a whole, full dugout of people out there with full, 15-man bullpens.
Okay. Talk about that we've kind of determined through just this conversation and some of the things that you've said to me and I said to me, it seems like the different ways to do the replay and the outcome you're trying to achieve is how you're going to run the replay. Like I'm going for as close to historical accuracy as possible to see what happens if I do the same thing they do. We should end up with the same results. Or if we don't, why? What happened? Did my players have a worse season or a better season? Than they did in real life, and then that can determine. That's what I'm going for. What you guys are going for more here's Team X. I'm going to take them through this season and see if I can do what the manager couldn't do, take them to the World Series or win the World Series or whatever, and have my team be better or more successful than they were in real life.
Right, but with limitations. I'm not going to use a guy if he was on the DL for a month. I'm not going to keep using him. I'm going to take him out when he's on the DL for those number of games and then put him back in when he comes in.
Right. You check your 25-man rosters, I'm guessing, daily, Dave, when you play your game
right.
to see who's available. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's perfect in our circumstance.
All right. So you're doing your replay, and your pitcher's giving up 5 runs in the first 2 innings. You pulling them?
Depends on who's in the bullpen and how tired they are. He may have to take one for the team. If I just came through that 15-inning game with the White Sox, I can't pull my starter in 2 innings because I'm going to run out of – I've already got my tired bullpen. So he may have to just take one for the team, depending on what the situation. I'd try to do whatever I think the manager in real life would do.
Okay. So
to the best of my ability.
I've heard that a lot from you, David, and that brings up a great question for me. And the philosophy is you would do what the manager would do in real life, is what you just said, and you said that like 6 times.
In that given situation, if they were in my situation that's on my tabletop,
right?
I'm doing what I think they would do in real life.
Okay, but then what you're telling me is the goal of your replay is to be better than that manager at the end of the year.
Right.
So if you're going to do what the manager would do in real life, but you're trying to do better than him in your replay, how does that philosophy work?
Well, I'm the manager. That's the whole point. I'm doing what I want to do because I'm the manager. But I'm doing what I think
you would do.
But baseball strategy is pretty universal. So I mean, there's not a whole lot of change to it. There's some nuances, but there's some general things that are strategically pretty much a given. I'm going to play the percentages: lefty, lefty, righty, righty. I'm going to save my best pinch hitter for the 8th or 9th inning, and I'm not going to burn him in the 4th inning.
So
things like that.
so you're not playing what the manager would do in real life then.
I'm doing what I would do if I was the manager, and what I think a manager would do. Not necessarily that manager, because I don't know his brain, or I think he was wrong.
See, that's where I'm having this. It's just my brain, I'm sure. Okay, so it's nothing against you. As again, if you're just joining us, this is a friendly conversation, just a discussion. There's nothing against anyone or anything or the way you do things. As long as you're happy in the way you're doing things, I'm bringing things out to get a conversation started just so we can have a discussion so people know where I'm coming from or where David's coming from or where Mike's coming from or anyone in the chat that wants to chime in and talk about the way they do things. My brain is saying to me, there's a direct conflict in what's going on when you're doing things that you would think the manager would be doing in real life, but you're trying to outdo what the manager did in real life.
Well, no, it's just that I'm in a different situation in my game than what the manager was in real life. He may be managing a game where he's ahead 6-3. I could be managing the game I'm down 7-3. So I'm not going to do the same thing he would do because he's got a different situation.
Okay. All right.
Now,
So
if I'm playing the game and I'm up 6-3,
my brain needed to hear. Yeah. That was the part that my brain needed to hear because
if the real game was 6-3 and my game 6-3 in the same point, then yeah, I'll probably use the same reliever that they would use. Like take for instance the Kansas City Royals in 2015. They had a 3-man bullpen at the end that they used. They had Kelvin Herrera, they had Wade Davis, and they had I forget the closer's name off the top of my head.
Greg Holland.
Greg Holland, yeah. So if I've got the lead in the game with the 2015 Royals in the 7th inning, guess what? I'm taking the starter out. I'm putting Kelvin Herrera in for the 7th. I'm putting Wade Davis in for the 8th, and I'm putting the closer in for the 9th because that's the way they played it, and it worked. But I'm not bound to that like a.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying I'm not limiting myself to only be able to do that, but that's just I'm doing it at the time if I'm in that situation because that's what I think they would do, or that's what I think a smart manager would do.
But don't you? Again, we're talking about this time continuing thing. The players have those stats because they did that in the 7th and they did that in the 8th and they did that in the 9th during the games that they did that in, right?
Right.
But if you don't do that, if you do that in the games that they didn't do it in, like say they did it, from game, 80 times in the season, they did that 7th inning, 8th inning, and 9th inning, but you do it 100 times because that's what they did, and you continue to do that. Don't you think that gives you an unfair advantage over what the manager actually had in real life to understand and do?
Absolutely. That's where fatigue comes in, and that's where they would be subject to fatigue and not be available for all those games.
But maybe the manager gave him a day off because, hey, dude was still on a roster, but he was home with his wife because she was sick or was in an accident or he was injured. He had a sore thumb that day. There's a million different things. Maybe he wasn't feeling good, but he was still on the roster. There's a million things that can come up. So maybe they only did it in real life.
Right, and there's a whole lot of maybes in there that we don't know. We don't know the situation, so we just do the best we can with what we have. And I try to play the most realistic game I can play, but also limit the number of games that somebody plays so they have a fatigue factor. And you can't just run somebody out there 100 times in relief. You're not Mike Marshall in '74 who pitched 104 games. That was a rarity. If I'm not going to sit there and bring in, like if I'm doing a Yankee replay, I'm not going to sit there and bring in Mario Rivera 90 times because that's unrealistic.
Well, you just told me I was running a 7-game World Series, and you just told me if Jansen didn't come in 7 times, he's coming in 7 times.
Well, that's a World Series. That's totally different than a season replay.
Well, where do you cut off on the difference? I guess is it playoffs?
Because you're only talking about a 5-game sample. And they were getting blown out, so the manager never had a chance to use Kenley Jansen. But in the course of a season, he would use him 50, 60 games, whatever it happens to be. But to limit yourself in a 4-game or 5-game series, I just don't think that's realistic to say you would not use Kenley Jansen but twice if the situation dictates it. So if you're getting blown out, you're not going to use them.
Let's go to the other extreme, right?
Okay.
You're the manager. You want to make the managerial calls. Game 5, they start Price over Sale, who started game 1. They started Price on short rest, which a normal manager wouldn't have done, right? What are you making the call? How are you handling that situation?
Well, in the World Series games. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it's as I'm doing with my 2002. It's as played. Price has to start.
Yeah. The start of the game is a strict as played. Once that first pitch is thrown, it's what we feel best dictates and plays the game the best. I'm not trying to carbon copy what the manager did.
Okay. In sports sim universe, right, of all the sports simmers you know, okay, percentage of people that do it like you are 90%, 95, 100, 20%.
Well, obviously not 100 because you're not one of us so, that do it the way me and Mike do. But I mean, I'd say the majority of the people do that. I think maybe some people might look and see who pitched in that game and then use them. Maybe not in the exact order, but maybe just use the guys initially that pitched in that game or played in that game. But when they may not have access to the 25-man roster either, so they might be playing guys that weren't even on the roster at the time. But if you have the right technology, to me, it goes back to that 25-man roster. And that being my only limitation is the 25-man roster. After that, I just play it the way I think it should be played. And Mike can chime in and see if he knows anybody that plays it any other way or plays it the way we do it.
Well, honestly, there are some people out there who would. Oh, okay. Perfect example might be I dare someone to do the. Okay, perfect example. I dare someone out there to do the 1988 replay and see if you're going to limit Kirk Gibson to the number of bats he had during that series, and dare you to get him in that game and get him against Eckersley in the bottom of the ninth. Will you automatically bat him in that game? Unfortunately, I'm not going to start him. So, are you going to alter history? Are you going to say, you know what? I'm going to make sure I win this replay and play Gibson every game. Back when we were younger and we didn't have the technology, we would have played our best 9, and that would have included Gibson. Didn't care. I would have said, you know what? Watching the 78 World Series and watch Brian F. Doyle he ended up in the MVP, but because Randolph tweaked his ankle last month of the season, wasn't available to them. So Doyle had to play that entire series, and it was like, oh man, we're dead. We're losing one of our key players. And you know what? This guy ended up being one of the key players of winning us a World Series. But, there may be someone that says, you know what? Heck that. I'm going to play Randolph 7 games of the World Series in 78 and play my best team. No, I mean, right now, in this current technology we have, I would prefer to do the as played lineup. So if I was to do an as played 88 series, I would be limited to probably the number of bats that Gibson had during that series, which might have been 1. I don't know how many bats he had beyond Eckersley, Dave.
No, he only had the 1. That was it.
So you're limited to his 1 at bat. So you get one bullet from Gibson for that entire series. Yeah. And I would stay to that ID. I wouldn't bat him 8, 9 times.
And I would also say that if I was replaying the 88 World Series, I would limit Gibson to game 1 only because that's the only game he played in. He wasn't available for the other games.
Exactly.
He was injured. So if I'm going to play him, I got to play him in game 1 because he wasn't available.
Correct.
I don't play guys that aren't available, but if they're available, they're fair game.
But I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that the players' stats on their card are based upon the events that happen to them. You're using that to your advantage for your own use because you now know what happened. You have knowledge of what happened. You know whether or not, Boston won the World Series last year or Los Angeles won it. You've got that knowledge, and so you can say, oh, player A really, really good, player B, not so good, but you're using the stats that the manager who was making the decision at the time don't have. They don't have that information. They don't have history to go back and look at. And your guys are using that information out of context, basically. You're saying, I'm going to play so-and-so player
I
because
disagree
he's
with that
available to
because
me.
we're using the as played lineups, and so we are forcing ourselves to use exactly who was started that game. And I don't know what Mike does, but I don't go around pinch hitting for guys in the second and third inning to get a better guy in there. I wait until it's a late game situation and then bring in who I think might be a good option. But I don't sit there and after the starting lineups are over, go pull out the three slubs and bring in my three good guys and play the rest of the game that way. I don't think that's realistic. I try to be realistic as I possibly can.
Yeah, I say
I'm not saying you guys are not doing realistic stuff. Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around when you're using players that didn't play in the game because the stats on the card are going to give you that advantage that the manager at the time didn't get to make that decision because he doesn't get to look back at history. When you say to me, I would do things that I think the manager would do in a normal situation, right? The manager at the time did what he thought a manager would do in a normal situation because he can't go
Right,
back and
but his
look.
normal situation is different than my normal situation in the replay. So you're again comparing apples and oranges, in my opinion. Just my opinion.
No, because I mean, sooner or later you're going to run into the same situation. It might be a different game, right? I mean, sooner
Right?
or later you're going to run into a situation where you're tied going in the bottom of the eighth inning, and you need to
Yep.
bring a pinch hitter in, and you're going to look
Yep.
at a player card and go, "Oh, this is blah blah blah," and he's got a 288, or I can bring in this player who hits 347. I'm going to bring in the 347 player because he's going to give me a better chance to win this game, and that's what I would do if I was making this smart managerial decision. Well, the thing is, the manager who was living this in real life, he didn't get to look back and say, "Oh, are you going to hit this ball or you're not going to hit this ball? Oh, let me see what your average is." He doesn't get to look back at the history and know all this information. He's got to make a decision based upon his feeling at the time. So you're using out of game. We talked about role playing in Dungeons and Dragons, and a player who looks at things that are not in the actual game is metagaming, and they're using outside information that their character would not know. So you're using that information as yourself. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Okay. I'm just saying you're using the information that is not known to the manager at that time because I don't think a manager is going to make, I mean, sure, every manager makes bad decisions. We all know that, right? Okay. But the manager is going to make the best managerial call that he would make in that game situation that he thinks would be the best advantage for his team to win that game. You're taking that information and changing it to because of what you now know. Just like if in tomorrow's game the Braves bring in Jose Bautista to pinch hit in the top of the ninth inning down a run because they expect him to hit a home run, and he bats 111. So as a replayer, where I am supposed to, quote unquote, closely follow the pattern of a previous event, am I supposed to say to myself, that's not going to give me the best chance to win because I can see he's got a 111 average?
No, but we don't go by the averages. I go by the situation. If there was a lefty reliever that was pitching at the time, yes, I would bring Jose Bautista in because, in my mind, Jose Bautista is good against left-handed pitching. So I would bring him in based on that situation. I guarantee, if you look it up, he probably pitched a pinch hit against a lefty, or they ran out of bench players, or they just got Bautista in the roster and they wanted to see what he can do. I mean, it's different situations there.
Here's his card right here. Here's his card. I'm going to show you his card. Jose Bautista.
Yep.
You stop talking, I will bring up his card here. He batted 188 versus lefties, 105 versus right-handers. He only had 16 at-bats versus lefties. He only had 19 at-bats versus right-handers.
So sooner or later, he's going to play against you when you play the Mets during late in the year, because once he got cut by the Braves, the Mets picked him up, correct?
Yeah, he only
That's
plays.
correct.
He only plays. His first game was the game we just broadcast, which was game number 31. He plays a total of 35 games for them. 35 games. So after 35 games, he's gone and goes to the Mets, right? So in the next game where it's tied in the top of the ninth inning, and they bring in Jose Bautista to pinch hit, are you going to tell me you're going to look at this card and go, damn, he's only hit 109 versus a right-hander and only hit 188 with the Braves, because this is just his Braves stats, and you're not going to alter that?
I'll alter that in a second. Unless he's starting. If he's starting, no, he'll get his 2 or 3 at bats and he'll get pinch hit for if he needs to. If it's a unforeseen game and the game is over, he'll get his 4 at bats. But if it's a game situation and he's already had 2 or 3 at bats, we're going to the 7th, 8th inning, I'm going to pinch hit for him and give myself a better chance at winning.
Which is using outside game information that you now know that the manager didn't know back then.
Okay, let me preface this, since you're using my moniker here. We're going back in the sports time machine ID. So we're talking. You're talking. My name's not George Michael, but this is what you can see on my sports time machine. But this is again as you look at the movie Back to the Future. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Back to the Future actually predict the Cubs winning the World Series in the right year?
Who?
The movie Back to the Future, Dave?
I think they predicted to win the 2015 because I think it was 30 years ahead.
So it was.
They were in 1985. So they were a couple years.
Later.
They were 1 year early. They were 1 year early.
Okay, well, see, there you go. You don't know, what resources you're given, but still, sometimes we foresee, maybe something that will work better than what the manager saw.
Okay, so that player, and I can get an example or two if you want. Player, left fielder, really bad error rating, and the center fielder has a really bad range, right? So to give yourself a better chance to win the game in the top of the ninth inning, up by 1 run, you're going to pull those players for better defensive players, and hope that they don't cause an error or a range play disaster when you're up by 1 run in the top of the ninth inning. Correct?
If I'm smart enough and I see it ahead of time, absolutely.
Now, see, if you watch me, ID playing the White Sox replay, they got some bad fielders on that team. They got guys that are 4s and strat, like Ralph Garr, George Orta, Alan Bannister. I never pull them. They play the whole game defensively. I don't mess with that because I don't think the manager would have done that in real life. I mean, they basically went with a set lineup majority of the time. So I'm not going to alter that because I'm not going to pull a marginal player off the bench because he's a 3 instead of a 4 to replace somebody else. I'm going to keep those guys in there.
That's true.
All right. Well, would that continue if you lost several games in the ninth inning because player X kept making errors?
Yeah, because there's basically nobody better on the bench. I mean, their bench options are awful.
Yeah, I'm about to say you don't have any good options.
Yeah. And back then, the disparagement of playing time between starters and bench players was so large because they basically went with the same 8, 9 guys all the time. In today's game, there's so many transactions. You got a bunch of guys with 200 at bats, and you got to keep making sure you're getting them in the lineup and everything. But 77, they pretty much played this like Cincinnati Reds. They had the same 7, 8 guys. Boston Red Sox, same 7, 8 guys. Yankees, 7, 8, 9 guys. So, to me, I wouldn't just arbitrarily put some no name in there because he had a one click better defensive rating in the ninth inning because I'm trying to fix the game at that point.
Just
Okay.
a quick side note as replay. I play 4 or 5 different replays. I'm in the middle of drafting prospects for a current replay right now, but I'm also playing. We started in 1980 and now we're in 1983, playing that season of guys in a draft league compared to playing into, let's say, a 1997 league that I'm playing in is so much different because the pitching really sucked in the 90s with the steroid era, and you get relievers only go 1 inning. So you look at the relievers back then in the early 80s, 70s, you had starters who can go 8, 9 innings and get you through the full game. And it was so much easier controlling your bullpen because you had these long relievers. It's a chore now, ID, playing a current league that you do and stuff like that. If you happen to play, let's say, an older league and do something else, you find it a lot easier to manage because your bullpen is more flexible than it would be now in baseball, where the guys have limits in number of pitches and innings and stuff like. And stuff like that, right, Dave? Too.
Yeah, 70. If you replay a 77 season replay or for a team, you would find a big difference. I mean, the closer goes 3 innings half the time.
Yeah.
Much less than the other relievers.
All right. So you know how Al, Red Sox fan, likes, and maybe you guys have done this as well, where he puts 2 teams against one another from like the 40s and the 90s or the 60s and the 2000s and just, fictional games, creates his own lineups,
Right.
puts players in, Drake's players out, pinches, would you do anything different than what you're doing now with that kind of replay? Like if you're going to do a fictional replay, would you do it the exact same way that you're doing it now?
Well, I'm not doing it on video because I got too much stuff going on, but I actually am playing for lack of a better term, a tenacious Earl type 10-team league where I just pick the first 25 guys I come up with. That's my start. Those are my rosters. And the as play, there are no as play lineups. I put in whoever I want to play, and then I try to spread the wealth as far as playing time. And I have my set rotations. I got my bullpen, and I just monitor usage. But I'm free to do whatever I want because there is no reference to go back to. It's a brand new thing. It's kind of like using my history maker baseball mentality. I'm trying to make history, not repeat it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See,
but that's in that 10-team league type thing.
See, that's where I'm kind of, if I was going to do what you guys do it, a replay like the way you guys do it, it would have to be like a fictional thing. But when you take real life, right? You take a real life game with real life players and you alter that the way you guys might do it based upon how you think the manager would do it. Okay. I'm not saying every game is going to, you alter everything every way possible. Never would say that. But, if I'm going to replay that game, that season or whatever, I'm going to change how I do it as opposed to doing a fictional one. I'm going to do it so that I'm going to do what they did in real life so I can see what happens in real life. But you do it the same way as you would do a fictional replay. You would do it as well as a real life replay. So you see how us.
That's not how I would do it. That they're totally apples and oranges. I do a season replay. I want to limit myself to the same options that the manager had by limiting myself to the 25-man roster, and then using his starting lineups after the first pitch is over. Then I take over as the manager, and I don't give a crap what he did in the real game. And I go about the situation that comes up in my game, and I play that out as if the game never happened in the first place. I'm playing it new for the first time for me.
And because it's going to be new, because it's going to be different.
Right. And by using as played,
right?
And you're still going to get good representation because the changes that are made or altered or whatever are so minimal. Maybe one pinch hitter, maybe one pitcher might be different, and that's it. I'm not taking starters out in the 4th or 5th inning to put better guys in. I'm sticking with those main guys until it gets to crunch time. I think it's what I think it's what Mike said. Seventh, eighth, ninth inning. That's when he really starts to put his manager hat on and say, "Wait a minute, let's see if I need somebody in a crucial time. I mean, if I'm down 8-2, I'm not going to burn a good pinch hitter just because I want to get somebody better in there. I'll just use some schlub because I want to rest my other guy and save him for a better chance."
All right, we're going to be wrapping up here shortly. I don't want to keep everyone too late. We want to welcome Johnny Smoke and the Cubs and the Bears to our live chat. Thank you, and RF as well. If anyone has any questions for our esteemed panel and how they do things or why they do it a certain way or anything like that, if you want to type it in the chat for us here. So, I appreciate Dave and Mike's opinions on everything. I wouldn't have them come every month and do our baseball review show if I didn't care what they had to say. I respect both of them. I think they do a great job. And we might not see eye to eye and everything. That doesn't mean I don't follow Dave and Mike, and I don't like what they do. I love what they do. Okay, I think they're awesome guys, and I told you when I had my interview with David to begin with, my channel on sports replays is based upon how David did his stuff because he was the guy that I came across first and watched his stuff over and over and over again, and I emulated him as best I could when I started doing my YouTubing because I was learning from what I thought was the best guy out there. So,
And I apologize for my phone screw up. I know exactly what happened, but I can't fix it. But but the green screen is better than me anyway. So
another
that's
week because I want you to come back for our end of May.
no. It was the reason this phone messed up is my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I let the battery get down to 15%. And so when it gets down to 15%, apparently it's not enough power to get the picture back. I've got it plugged in, but if I plug it in, it keeps it at 15%. I can't get it above 15%. I think if I got it above 15%, my picture would come back. But
here is a great
right. The green box looks better to me anyway, so I'm fine with that.
Here's a great question by DC, and welcome DC. Thanks for coming by. We do appreciate it. Don't forget, guys, hit that like button if you get a chance. Great question. Okay. If I'm going to be using a 25-man roster for all my replays, is there a site to get that data from? So if I go and say I'm going to replay the 2006, or we'll just say 1988 game between the Mets and the Yankees, or no, let's go Mets and Phillies. How do I get that 25-man roster? Where do I get that information from?
To me, I think I mentioned it before, baseballsimresearch.com, or what's I guess known to the industry as the Ronbo site, they will actually give you you can print as played roster sheets, and then they have usage charts, and it shows you when let's say when Albert Pujols will come in and when he'll rest next, or how many if he plays every single inning for every single game for the rest of the year. They show exactly when the rest days are and who plays in that day, and you can kind of use that to get information. It's baseballsimresearch.com. A lot of the replay guys, you can actually print PDFs for free and actually print them out.
And for me, I go way back. I actually use Diamond Mine computer game.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay.
And because that has all the seasons I have on that, they have all the transactions. So like when I'm doing my Manic Monday or whatever, and I want to know who's available, who the starting lineups and who the 25-man roster was on May the 27th for the particular year I'm doing, I'll go to Diamond Mine. I'll sim it all the way up to May 26th and then look at May 27th and see who's there and write down all those players, and that's the cards I'm pulling.
Here's another great question by Johnny Smoke for you guys. Okay. And this is actually interesting because I just came across this with Fall Classic Baseball as I was cutting out their cards. The question is, should a player that didn't get a home run in the regular season, should he be allowed to get a home run in a replay?
the card should not allow it because, like in Strat, he would have a weak power rating, so he would not be able to get a home run. And same with payoff pitch. I mean, they're not going to. I think most of the card games are not going to allow a guy to get a home run because he won't be rated for it.
Well, okay. I mean,
Now, basic Strat, he would get it because if the pitcher gets a home run, that's
isn't
it.
there like a rare play chart? There's always those.
Not for a home run. Not that I'm aware of a home run. No, I don't think so for a home run.
You can use a home-brewed rule that says once a guy hits his. That's the same thing about a triple, and I think I've seen Dave do this too. Said, well, he's had a triple in the regular season, so we'll go ahead and give him a triple now, right, Dave?
Yeah, and the Strat computer game will actually, if you got it on Super Advanced, it will put up there if somebody gets a triple, it'll change it to a double, like a slow running catcher or something. The computer will automatically make that adjustment. It's an adjustment factor. I forget what it's called, but it's on the Strat computer that says, nope, you're getting a double, you're not getting a triple.
Right. Okay.
And that's the only computer game I know that does that. I mean, there may be others, but that's the only one I'm aware of that does that. But I know Strat is really good about the weak and normal power.
Front of your phone, David.
Say again now?
Are you tapping your front of your phone?
No, I was tapping my chair.
Oh, you're tapping your chair.
I'll stop. Sorry.
That's okay. I didn't know if you were like trying to activate your phone or something.
No, I don't want to do too much maneuvering with this because I'm afraid I'll lose audio too. And so I'm going to quit while I'm behind and just keep the audio going.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap things up. But before we do, since we're talking replays, I want you guys to talk about the replays that you're currently going on in your channel or going to come on your channel shortly. So let's go ahead and start with you, Sports Time Machine. Just let everyone know, since we're talking replays, what replays are you doing on your channel and what do you got coming up?
Well, I'm currently doing my 2002 Stratomatic replay. I was gifted a few different sets of Strat, and I found this one. I goes, oh, that was a great World Series and a great year. So I'm actually going to be playing that one, all 7 games, hopefully. And I'm also been dabbing with the Status Pro with the basketball with the 76er replay from the 82-83 season. And actually, when I do that, when I play as played, I actually use the players that actually appeared in the game. So if I had guys who had I guess what they called a DNP in basketball, they're not going to play for me in the game. So if you were wondering how I did that, when I play basketball replays, I'm actually going to the actual roster or the game situations, see who got minutes, and then they actually play. And if I have cards of other players, well, they sit. They get the DNP for that game or do not play it. So I've been playing that, and that's been about it. I've been focusing on different sports. Really, I've been playing a lot of different. Trying to get football on my channel too, with the Stratomatic, with the college and the pro and stuff like that. Because when fall comes, I want to try to get something going with that also.
Awesome. All right, Dave, what do you got going on for replays now?
Well, I'm basically laser focused on the 77 White Sox Stratomatic. But in order to get some variety, that's how I came up with this Manic Monday thing, to try to get other board games on the channel. So I thought a neat way to do that was every Monday, since Uncle Ron's not streaming on Monday at noon, was to pick a different game and pick a date, replay a game from that date of a certain year. Like this past Monday, I picked May 20th, 1978, and picked a game from May 20th, 1978. So I go to the games from that date in certain years of all the collections I have and say, okay, what's a good game to play? And I thought Pittsburgh Montreal would be a good game to play. And so for Memorial Day coming up, I was going to do Baltimore and Seattle payoff pitch, but then I looked at it. They actually played the game the day after Memorial Day. So I'm switching that and playing from the nation's capital. This Monday it's going to be the Twins against the Senators 1969 payoff pitch on Memorial Day. And I'll probably, since most people aren't going to be at work that day, I'm just going to record and upload. It's not going to be a premiere because it's not really a true lunchtime thing. Like, I've been trying to make this Manic Monday thing be a lunchtime thing. Once that's done, then I still want to try to get something either done with History Maker Baseball or this new 1989 Inside Pitch set I bought, because I really like Inside Pitch and I really want to. The only way to get better at inside pitch is to keep playing it. And so I want to do something with inside pitch. Maybe the 89 Orioles, or maybe just a pitcher replay, or maybe take it from, all, like you did with your replay baseball, maybe take it from September 1 and see if I can get the Orioles to catch the Blue Jays in 89 because they were close. Something along those lines.
Right.
It's just whole Manic Money thing was just to get something other than Strat out there, because that's all I was doing with Strat, and I wanted some variety.
Well, there's print out the inside pitch. Not only print out the charts, but print out the little baseball field they have, because they have all the numbers that you need right on that little field. And I use that as a good reference.
Shoot. I forgot my camera wasn't working. I'd show you. I actually got the actual print when I bought the game. I got the original laminated field that came.
Oh wow, nice, awesome.
Yeah, that came with the game. It says like S7 -2 advance 1 to 3 or something. It's giving me all these little things here that are like little cheat sheet helps.
Oh, I would have loved to see that. Yeah, that is like a godsend for that game, because inside pitch is a great game. The only problem they have is the baseman
base runner advancement. Yeah. And most of the base running advancement's okay. It's just when you get into these secondary charts and secondary throws, like if you roll a 6 and you have to go to a secondary chart, that's where it gets a little cumbersome. But otherwise, to me, it's a really nice free flowing game, and I love the design. I think the card quality is pretty good too. I like the way they're in team colors.
That makes cards, because I've been thinking about getting a set. I printed out a couple sets, but I have not actually ordered a set, so I'd like to see those.
Oh, the difference between the printed set and the PDF, even no matter how well you print it yourself, you can't recreate what it's a shiny gloss, and it just looks so much better. Now, granted, it costs you a lot more, but then again, by the time you pay for the paper and the ink, and especially if you're printing in color, you're not really saving that much.
Yeah, exactly.
And they all come perforated on a sheet of paper, like 9, 12 cards or something to one sheet, and it's all perforated. And you just unperforate them. They're all the teams are together. It's not like payoff pitch where they're all jumbled. Everything's together. It's very, very well coordinated.
Awesome. Great to hear. Ken Castro's in the house. He's going to have to listen to this over. We talked about replays. We talked about how to use players for replays, different philosophies. We talked about, just what do you do when you don't have a player card, what to do in situations. Do you manage it like it was managed in the actual game, or do you use your own managerial skills? And what is your outcome you're trying to get out of your replay? And I think that was ultra important as well. But I want to thank, of course, Baseball Demos and Sports Time Machine for coming out tonight and having this wonderful discussion. We're going to be having another discussion in another week or so, guys. End of May, we're going to get back together and talk about our baseball. End of May and what's happening in the season. Have you guys been following along? I bet.
Yeah, the Red Sox have seemed resurrected all of a sudden, and the Yankees are getting their players back. So.
Yep. The player. I said at the end of April, I said, "You watch when May comes, we're going to have totally different feelings about everybody."
Yeah. And it seems like the Dodgers are kind of running away with the West. That seems almost like a foregone conclusion.
And
they're a lot better. They're a lot better than I thought they were.
And Houston has already won the West, in my opinion. I think that's already over.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it. I will set a date and time with you guys, probably like June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whenever we can get it scheduled. I'd like to do it as close to the end of the month as possible.
Right.
So, well, anyways, guys, I do appreciate it. And I want to say thanks to everyone for coming out. Ken Castro, Thomas, Johnny, Bob B. Hey, Bob, how you doing, my friend? Hope all is well. DC, DJ John 4444, the Cubs, the Bears. Clinton Parks was here. Clinton, I'm sorry, I didn't even see a message until now. Bud W, Bobby Catalano, Viper Dave, Mike McAllister, Dave Gardner, and Phantom Manic. And if I missed your name, I apologize. But we had a great crew come out tonight to talk about this. We'll be doing it again shortly. So, gentlemen, thank you once again for coming out.
Thanks, ID.
All right,
you.
guys, at home, we will see everyone soon. Until we do, take care and be sure to subscribe to both Baseball Demos, Sports Time Machine, wonderful channels. We'll see everyone in another week when we talk the end of May baseball. Thanks for coming out tonight. We'll see you guys all next time.